create room in our vault. We will auction off those properties, and that's what we're in the middle of right now.
I want to start with when you auction off some of these items, where does that money go?
So we hold on to the money forever. This is not a way to fund state government. This is a way of turning physical items into cash. There are limits to how many physical items we can store in our vault, but we can store basically infinite cash in bank accounts. And so that Hank Aaron baseball card that your grandfather saved, if you come back 15 years later, we may not be able to give you that card, but we'll give you every penny that it sold for at auction.
So, what other types of items are able to be generated for these online auctions? Like you mentioned, the Hank Aaron baseball card. What else is out there?
We have something for everyone out there. If you're a sports fan, we have Hall of Famers, we have basketball greats and legends, we have hockey, baseball, football cards out there, we have jewelry, a woman's gold watch, some pocket watches out there, we have currency, old notes and old coins, we have gold, we have silver. If you have someone in your life who's one of those hard to buy for people and the holidays are not that far around the corner, go to our website, look and see if we have something that might be special for them. And this is a great way to start doing your holiday shopping early.
How would an item like a 1989 Chicago Bears pin or maybe the Jackie Robinson baseball card, how do those items end up going unclaimed?
Well, these were things that were important for someone. They feared either them being stolen from their house or burnt up in a fire. And so they put them aside in a bank safe deposit box. And that's a very safe way to store something. But if it was really valuable to you, you may not have told your children or your spouse or grandchildren about what you had and where you stored it. And when you passed away, if no one knew to go to that bank to claim it, it eventually goes unclaimed and turned over to our office. And so we'd love to get it back into the hands of the rightful owners or their loved ones and next of kin.
So, how does the treasurer's office? How do you guys decipher whether to put an item up for auction, or just to hold on to it a little bit longer?
So it all depends on how long we have held on to this. Generally, the items we put on the auction have been untouched by their owner for at least 10 years. If after that time no one's come forward to claim it, it becomes less likely we do. But once again, all we're doing with this auction is turning this physical property into cash. We will still hold on to that cash for as long as it takes for someone to claim.
And what steps should all Illinois residents be taking to check if they might have some unclaimed property out there?
Yeah, so we're happy to do this, but we would love it if it never came to us in the first place. And so the first thing is if you have valuables stored somewhere in a bank safe deposit box, make sure it's written down somewhere for after you pass away. Make sure you tell one or at least a couple people in your family about this. That way it never comes to us. But if someone in your family has passed away and you don't know if you found all of the money or items that were in their possession, go to our website at icash.illinoistreasurer.gov, or you can just go to illinoistreasurer.gov and click on iCash, unclaimed property. Check for yourself, check for your family members, check especially for deceased family members, but you might also want to check for a business that you own or a charity or an organization you're part of, because we have money not just for people, but for organizations in the state as well.
There was a live auction not all that long ago at the state fair, and that set some record sales there. Did you take anything from that you think can maybe apply to this auction, to this online auction that's coming up? Do you think it'll have maybe be as popular as the state fair one?
We love the state fair one because I love the state fair. I grew up in downstate Illinois, attended the state fair. Judy Bartopinka started this years ago, and I brought it back. It's a great day at the fairgrounds, and we smash records. We auctioned off about $370,000 worth of items. Set a record for one individual. We had a bar of gold that sold for $33,500. And what I've learned here is you get better prices when more people know about it. So that's one of the reasons why we're doing this press tour, these press availabilities, to let people know that there are treasures and valuables out there. Something that really meant someone to someone in this state, but for whatever reason, they've lost track of it. And we kind of feel like those valuable items ought to be in the warm embrace of family rather than in a cold vault here in Springfield, Illinois. But you had asked earlier about what our process was, how long we hold on to them. It's about 10 years, with the exception of military medals. That's one thing that we'll never auction off. A lot of people come back from war. They have the same feeling of their military medals. They don't want them being stolen or burnt in a home fire, so they store them. But that's something you can't buy. We're not going to sell that valor. That's something that is earned by those people who served our country, and we will hold on to those for as long as it takes to track down the rightful owners or their heirs.
I'm sure the families definitely approve of that measure for sure. I want to ask you. You said that some of these items are literally stored in a cold safe. Is that literally where they're stored? How do you, I guess, ensure their safety until you're able to find the rightful owners or put it up for auction? Walk us through where things are actually stored.
Yeah, I'm coming to you live from my building in Springfield, Illinois. And if you were here, be happy to give you a tour down in our basement. This is Abraham Lincoln's old bank. And down in our basement, we have multiple vaults. And so to get there, you got to get through one set of doors with codes. You've got to go through some people, get to another large walk-in vault. And then from there, they're stored in individual safe deposit boxes as well. So there's a lot of security protecting these. We also want to make sure that we protect these from identity thieves. There are a lot of people out there who go to our website, find lots of money. We have nearly $5 billion out there we'd like to return to people in the state. And for some of those larger claims, people will go to the trouble of creating a fake identity to try and claim some of these valuables. But we have put things in place to reduce that amount, and we will prosecute anyone who is illegally attempting to claim something that is theirs to the fullest extent of the law.
From your time there in the treasurer's office, is there any one item that has surprised you the most? Like, how in the world did this end up here?
When I first came in for treasurer, they took me down to the vault and showed me a large sword. Now, I realized there are different sizes of bank safe deposit boxes, but I didn't realize there was one long enough to include a sword. We have found all kinds of interesting things out there, but I would say the ones that are most impactful to me, and the one I remember the most when I came down, I saw in a display case a Purple Heart. My uncle had earned a Purple Heart in Vietnam, but I had never seen that Purple Heart before. I'd never seen one in person, just pictures of them. And that started my effort to try and track down the rightful owners of those Purple Hearts. A few years ago, we started Operation Purple Heart to help return more of these military medals. And just a few weeks ago, I was able to return my 16th Purple Heart since taking office. We still have 7 more in our possession that we'd love to reunite with their rightful owners. And so if someone out there wants to help in that effort, they can go to operationpurpleheart.org, check and see information we have from those safe deposit boxes, see if you know anything, if you might be able to give us a clue so that we can return those final 7.
And I got one more for you. Beyond auctions, what are some of the other outreach efforts that your office does to maybe reconnect people with some of their unclaimed property across the state?
So when it comes into us, we send letters to the last known address. We try and track down phone numbers and call people. We work with legislators to track down mutual constituents. We have civic engagement staff that goes out to public events. There are some people who just don't trust the internet. We can send them a letter. We can tell them to go to a website. Some people don't want to, and they need that personal touch. And when they show up at a town hall or a senior event and they see a state employee sitting behind a table with an official banner and a name badge, they're much more likely to trust us. So we go to great lengths and many different medium in order to try and track down the rightful owners and find people where they are.
All right, Illinois Treasurer Michael Frerichs, thanks so much for your time, and we hope that you can return some of these much-needed items, especially those Purple Hearts. I believe you said there are 7 left, so hopefully some of these Illinois families will come forward and claim them for sure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. We encourage people to go to illinoistreasurer.gov to look about things on the auction, but also check for yourself. See if we have something that belongs to you. We find about 1 in 4 people who go to our website find we have something that belongs to them, and the average amount last year was about $1,000.
All right, $1,000 richer. We'll take that for sure. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, time is now 1:11 here on Chicago Live. We are still awaiting for Governor Pritzker. He's going to be speaking at a new ribbon cutting at a health and wellness center at Joliet Junior College. We will bring those remarks to you as soon as they happen, but for right now, we're going to take a short break here on Chicago Live, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. You're looking live where we are expecting some remarks any moment now from Governor Pritzker. He is at Joliet Junior College, and we are expecting him to show up. He's running a little bit late so far, but we will bring those remarks to you live from the governor as soon as they happen here on Chicago Live. Brian Jackson here with you. And from Chicago and Joliet, we're going to now head up to New York, where we're going to check in what's going on at the UN General Assembly 2025. We did hear some remarks from President Trump a little bit earlier this morning. Let's listen in.
We are part of the Ibero-American community. Indeed, Portugal feels like a kindred spirit of Latin America. We share common priorities such as inclusive multilateralism, sustainable development, and social cohesion.
Our South is made of respect and solidarity. We launched the first EU-African Union summits.
Initiative of the first and second summits
between European Union and the African Union. We cooperate actively with the PMA, CITES, and LLDC. At the same time, we think that protecting means also protecting the role of women, youth as agents of change, the access to education, leadership, political participation. The world needs more women and more youngest as leaders in the procedures of decision. Third pillar, protection. We participate for 65 years in peacekeeping. Thousands of armed forces and security forces participated in 25 missions in 4 continents, mostly in Africa. Peacekeeping now with 4 peace operations, a quick reaction force, punctual payment, example of intervention in every continent, defense of a predictable and stable financing, including for the missions that are promoted by Security Council or accepted by Security Council, but initiative of African Union. This year, we celebrate the 25th anniversary of the additional protocol to the Convention of Rights of Children involved in armed conflicts. It's a drama. It's a drama. Children going on being victims in every war scenario. We have the legal duty, the political and the moral duty of protecting them. And then, of course, humanitarian international law. One spoke of it, about the situation in areas of conflict. Geneva Conventions are not suggestions. They involve duties. We participated in the 6th Commission preparing the Convention on Crimes Against Humanity. Human rights. Human rights. Human rights mean personal rights, political rights, freedom of expression, economic rights, social, cultural rights, universal, interdependent, and inseparable. Não podemos ficar.
We cannot.
And you were just listening to some remarks from the UN General Assembly taking place in New York City. President Trump spoke there a little bit earlier today. We'll be checking back and forth to see if there are any major items that we need to get you made aware of and up to speed at the UN General Assembly. So we're joined now by Emily Wall. So you know what time it is. It's time to take a look at the forecast. It looks a little brighter out there compared to earlier today.
Today is one of those days that no matter what time you look out the window, it looks different than the time before, right? So we've had passing showers, couple of thunderstorms. But yeah, in the city of Chicago right now, it is stunning. We have the sunshine coming back out. Temperatures are beginning to rise again too. So previously today, we were in the mid 70s, then we dropped it back down to about 70 as showers and storms rolled through. But right now, we actually still have a couple stronger storms, Brian, over in the south suburbs, northwest Indiana. So we're not done with the rain chances just yet today, although I do think that the majority of the activity, the coverage that we're seeing out there right now is probably at its highest until tonight. So we're just kind of stuck in this weather pattern where we have waves and waves and waves of showers and storms rolling through. And it's because we have a stationary front that's been dropping south through the area, a low pressure system passing south of us tonight. So we're just close enough to all of these things happening that we're still being influenced by that weather pattern. So we have showers and storms in your forecast tonight. And then tomorrow, still a very small chance, mainly during the morning. But I think after that, we're actually going to dry things out and things look good. I expect to become partly sunny on Wednesday. High temperatures, though, we're dialing it back a little bit here into the low 70s, which is near normal for this time of the year. We haven't been able to say that in a little while. So cooler conditions on Wednesday and Thursday. And on Thursday, I am so close to pulling those rain chances.
Oh.
So I think that we're going to begin to dry things out. Most areas end up staying dry on Thursday. And then this weekend, it looks great. It just doesn't look like fall.
Right.
So
we're
for
still
all
waiting.
I
want to get my layering pieces and everything.
I know.
Yeah.
We're ready for the flannel and the layers and the jackets, but Mother Nature is, kind of pumping the brakes on that one. But if you think back to the spring, do you remember how long it took for summer to actually feel like it got here? So now we're just kind of tagging it on to the back end.
So on the back end of that, earlier today we were speaking with one of our Florida directors. He said his daughter was on a flight and it got diverted to St. Louis. Do we have some more, serious storms earlier today which impacted our airports?
So we definitely had some showers and storms earlier today that were impacting some areas. We had those heavy downpours, gusty winds with those. They weren't severe, but some of them were packing a little bit of a punch. They were these small but mighty little guys that were showing up on the radar. Right now, most of that activity is mainly in Kankakee County and then over into northwest Indiana. So we're going to see a drying trend. We could see a couple pop-up showers or storms later today, but I think the better chance of that is really going to be during the overnight. So the worst is almost out of here.
All right, so we got some lower temperatures for the next 2 days, and then it kind of heats up again on the weekend.
Heats back up. We have 80s for the weekend.
All right, we'll enjoy it while we got it, because once the cold is here,
we know what's coming.
We know exactly.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Emily. Do we have the governor? Has he shown up yet in Joliet? Well, actually, let's listen in.
Joshua, thank you. Now, in the center, these outdoor spaces, students find a lifeline. Under the leadership of Director Cindy Denzel and her incredible team, this center offers licensed therapy, connects students to trusted community partners. And the Wolves Essential Pantry ensures that no student goes without food or clothing. In these outdoor spaces, these calming spaces, a Zen garden invites students to pause, reflect, and reset, making this center a truly safe space. Cindy, thank you for your leadership. And to Cindy's incredible team, thank you for making this vision a reality.
And this is part of the ribbon cutting ceremony that we've been telling you about here on Chicago Live. You can see Governor Pritzker there in the background. We are expecting him to take to the podium again. He is at a ribbon cutting for a new health and wellness center at Joliet Junior College. We're going to take a short break, and right after that, we're going to bring you the governor as he steps to the mic there in Joliet. We'll be right back. coming up on 127, as promised, here is Governor J.B. Pritzker in Joliet. Let's listen in.
Have the problem, or like no one will recognize that it's a real problem. And so I am so pleased to hear a college president talk about it in such an open way, and for all of you to recognize it, and for Josh and all the work that he did to help make something like this happen. It makes me proud to live in a state where we don't see it as stigma, where we just treat mental health like it's physical health, the same way that people ought to get the treatment they're due, that we ought to have universal help and health care available to people, and that we can provide it in our community colleges across the state. So thank you. Thank you for being so open about it, and to all of you. Proud to be with you on this special day, the opening of the Center for Student Wellness and Support. It really is an incredible facility, and it has a vital mission to support the health and well-being of students on their educational journey. To Director Cindy Denzel and all the faculty and administrators and students here at JJC, thank you. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment to the students here, to each other, and the importance of your health. You've made this such a special place to get an education, a welcoming place, and it's your dedication that has made this project a reality. I want to recognize someone whose name has already been invoked here, but it probably can't be invoked enough. An alumnus, a former student trustee, Josh Stamborski, who first proposed this idea, came up with the idea for a student wellness center. Josh, your efforts are making truly a transformational difference for generations of students coming forward here at JJC. We all owe you a debt of gratitude. Thank you very much. A special thanks to Representative Dee Avilar, to Senator Rachel Ventura, to Senator Capel, to Leader Natalie Manley, who told me to say she's more than just a leader, she's my friend, and what did you say I should say? My love? My love, yeah. I just said, sorry, honey, where are we going to say? And really to all of our partners in the Illinois General Assembly, things like this don't happen unless there is support from a majority in the General Assembly that actually cares about mental health and physical health of our students. So their advocacy and their action brought together the support that made this day possible. The Center for Student Wellness and Support combines two critical and urgent priorities for the state: investing in our students and promoting statewide mental health. These are two areas that have always been of critical importance to me as governor. I think they are now being recognized by really every educational institution across the state as vital, and I think parents, students, seniors, everybody is now recognizing how important these facilities are. Joliet Junior College is also an engine of economic and educational opportunity. It's one of the reasons why there is such widespread support for community colleges across the state. I think there's an increasing recognition that four-year universities are terrific, but they don't provide everything that every student needs. And indeed, increasingly, it's the education that gets provided at Joliet Junior College and at community colleges all across our state that is what our young people and people continuing education students need. It's why the General Assembly and I have made substantial investments in our higher education infrastructure. But in order for students to fully realize all the benefits and to make the most of their education, they need to feel supported and empowered and mentally strong. Because as enriching and transformative as this experience can be at a community college, it is also quite challenging. Students are juggling really heavy workloads. They're juggling social calendars and part-time or full-time jobs and their families. And no matter what your age is or your background or your history, all of that can stretch you thin. Especially right now, especially in this moment, it is vital that our students are met where they are with the support they need. The Center for Student Wellness and Support is making that happen here at JJC. Through accessible and culturally responsive mental health services, this facility supports the holistic health and well-being of this community. Giving students access to such a wide range of services has transformational impact. Personal counseling with licensed therapists, coordination with community resources, group therapy, wellness workshops, a Zen garden. Having a comprehensive, holistic infrastructure of mental health so close to home can help our students maximize their potential while promoting their emotional well-being. So I want to encourage all Joliet Junior College students to take advantage of this incredible facility for your physical and your mental health. Do so proactively. Asking for help takes an awful lot of courage and strength, but it also is so available to you, and there isn't a lot to overcome. It's right here, and people are supportive of you. It can make a world of difference if you reach out for yourself, for your loved ones, for your community. If you're struggling, know that you are not alone. As isolating and overwhelming as mental health challenges can sometimes seem, there is help for you right here. Your family, your friends are here for you. This facility and the people who work here are here for you. This Center for Student Wellness and Support will be here for whatever your needs are. Thank you to all of you once again who are here. Thank you for caring for the students at this great college. And it brings me an immense amount of pride in our state to come here to see us all coming together around this issue and this important opening. And with that, I'll hand the podium over to a real champion for the health and well-being of the people of this community, Representative Dee Avilar.
Good afternoon, everybody. Buenas tardes. One of the things I wanted to do, and before I say this, I saw that I need to make a special plug for the 988 hotline. It says that hay esperanza, there's hope. And I think that is what we're talking about today. Today is one of those moments that fills me with pride, not only as a state representative, but as a neighbor, as someone who believes deeply in the power of education and the responsibility that we all share to lift up our young people. When the leadership at Joliet Junior College approached me about supporting the creation of a new Center for Student Wellness and Support, my answer was immediate and unwavering. Absolutely. And I also do want to say this doesn't happen in a vacuum because, as you all could tell, all of these things take time. So I remember we had this conversation my first term in office. So I do want to give credit also to legislators who are here standing with us, because when we look at capital funding, we look at it also at a regional level. And we know that when it comes to JJC, we are helping not just the students of the 85th District, but then also Senate District 43rd, right, with State Senator Ventura, with with the House District 98th, which is with Representative Manley here as well, and also with State Senator McCappell too. When we look at these things, we really mean it when we say that we want to work as a team, and we look at the region, because when the region thrives, our districts thrive. So this center is more than just a building. It is a sanctuary, a place where students can access compassionate, culturally responsible mental health services, where they can find counseling, care coordination, and workshops that not only support their academic success, but nurture their personal growth. Here, students will find community resources, group therapy, and outreach events that remind them that they are not alone. It's also about dignity, with the Wolves Essential Pantry, as it was mentioned, providing food and clothing, and the calming spaces like the Zen Garden, the outdoor reflection areas. We are saying loud and clear, your well-being matters. Your success is not measured only by your grades or your test scores, but by how you are supported, valued, and cared for while you are pursuing your education. I stand here today proud that we have invested in this holistic well-being of JJC and their students. And because when students are well, they thrive. And when they thrive, our entire community also thrives. The center embodies the values of equity, inclusivity, and compassion, and it acknowledges that students come to JJC with diverse identities, unique challenges, and powerful dreams. And it ensures that no student has to choose between their mental health and their education. So to the leadership, staff, students of Joliet Junior College, special shout out to Josh. I can tell you that our future looks bright with you. So thank you, Josh, also for looking at a vision and not giving up on it. So thank you for that. We know that together we have created something that will not only serve today's students, but generations to come. This is what it means to invest in our future. This is what it means to lead with heart. And this is why I am so proud to celebrate the Center of Student Wellness and Support. Thank you so much. And with that, I will introduce Director Cindy Denzel.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is such a joy for me to stand here with all of you for this ribbon cutting of the Center for Student Wellness and Support. I truly want to thank our students, my team, my bosses, right, leadership and community partners for believing in this vision and for walking with us on the journey to get here. When I began my role in November of last year, the seeds of this vision had already been planted. The blueprint was created, and I was entrusted with helping bringing it to life. When the doors opened earlier this year, they became more than just doors. They represented access, care, and belonging for our students. We know our students are balancing academics, jobs, family responsibilities, financial stress, and mental health challenges. The center was created to meet them where they're at, with compassion, with resources, and with the belief that every student deserves to thrive. In our first year, we saw last year, over 1,700 hours of counseling was provided and nearly 6,000 students engaged in our events. To give one example of growth, just this September, we've seen almost double the number of students compared to the same time last year. Our Joliet Junior College values guide every.
And you've just been hearing some remarks from a new health and wellness center at Joliet Junior College. Governor Pritzker made a few short comments there. We will return you to Joliet when we get to the question and answer portion of that press conference with Governor Pritzker. For now, your time is now coming up on 1:40 here on Chicago Live. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. Time is now 1:42, as we've been telling you so far this 1 o'clock hour. We're going to return you to Joliet. We are waiting for Governor J.B. Pritzker to retake the podium, where he will take some question and answer. But in the meantime, you're hearing some remarks from a ribbon cutting that was just held for a new health and wellness center at Joliet Junior College. Let's listen in.
This wellness center is more than cinder bricks and Joliet lime mortar. It's a promise, an affirmation that JJC will continue to care for its students, its staff, and its community, not just through academics, but the whole unique individual in all of their beautiful complexity. And in the eye of my mind, at least, when that ribbon flutters to the floor, what I see is love. Love for your students, love for our community, and the love for the total project that is humanity. Thank you. And I will turn it back over to the lovely Dr. Namuo.
I'm lovely now. I love it. Okay. Josh, actually, can I get you up here? We'll do the ribbon cutting. Can I have you up here? And then we'll get our teams to help.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for attending. Right now, we've got refreshments and self-guided tours right inside here, so please feel free. Thank you so much.
All right, you were just listening to a press conference there at Joliet Junior College, where they just announced the opening of a new health and wellness center at Joliet Junior College. We're now going to return you to New York for the UN General Assembly. We're going to listen in on some security conversations between the U.S. and China.
Under international humanitarian law and fully restore access for humanitarian supplies. Last week, the Security Council's draft resolution on Gaza was vetoed once again by a permanent member. With deep disappointment, we expect the relevant country to effectively shoulder its responsibility and make earnest efforts to end this war. Second, we must de-escalate tensions in the West Bank Israel continues to expand settlements in the West Bank, forcibly demolish Palestinian structures, conduct frequent searches, arrests, and raids, and condone settler violence. The occupying power has recently approved and advanced the E1 settlement plan. This dangerous act gravely violates international law and Security Council resolutions, undermines the territorial contiguity of Palestine, and erodes the foundations of an independent Palestinian state. We call on Israel to immediately cease all settlement activities, curb settler violence, and lift restrictions on Palestinian economic activities. Third, we must rectify the historical injustices suffered by the Palestinian people. Israel has long established itself as an independent state. The Palestinian people, however, remain without a homeland. This is the root of the problem. The two-state solution as the only viable way to solve the Palestinian question is irreplaceable and must not be denied. Yesterday, the Younger High-Level International Conference on a Two-State Solution once again issued a strong call in support of the two-state solution. A number of Western countries have recently recognized the state of Palestine one after another. The international community should sustain the current momentum, strive to revitalize the prospect for the two-state solution, and support the early establishment of an independent Palestinian state and its early admission as a full member state of the United Nations. Both Gaza and the West Bank are inalienable parts of the Palestinian territory. We must resolutely oppose unilateral actions that undermine the foundations of the two-state solution. Any day-after governance and reconstruction arrangements must respect the will of the Palestinian people and uphold the legitimate rights of the Palestinian nation. Fourth, we must maintain peace and stability in the Middle East. From the onset of the current Gaza conflict, there has been frequent abuse of force and military adventurism, which have triggered profound changes in the regional landscape. The Middle East is once again standing at historical crossroads: relaxation or escalation, dialogue or confrontation, peace or war. These are the choices that the regional countries and us, the international community, should make collectively. We call on all parties to effectively respect the sovereignty, security, and territorial integrity of countries in the Middle East. We call on Israel to earnestly respect the rights to survival and development of the people in the Middle East, and call on countries in the region to prioritize long-term peace and security, uphold the vision of common security, resolve differences through inclusiveness, address conflicts through dialogue, come together to shape a regional order based on equity and justice, and jointly build a future of peaceful development in the region.
And you were just listening to some comments from China, from the UN General Assembly. They were speaking about security here in the U.S. We will potentially take you back to New York a little bit later today. But for now, we want to bring you back here to Chicago. We're now joined by Jen Walling. She is the Executive Director of the Illinois Environmental Council. She has worked on lead service line issues for years. She's going to join us for some perspective on what we need to know about the lead pipe situation here in Chicago. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
So from a public health perspective, just how critical is it for every Chicagoan to receive formal notification that their water comes through lead service lines?
Yeah, well, there is no acceptable level of lead, especially for children. And so knowing what material your service line is made of is an essential piece of determining your risk. It used to be that we thought that lead service lines didn't have a risk of conveying lead into the home, but there's many instances where it can be very high, and in every instance it's a risk. So it's really important that people know where their water is coming from. Are they drinking out of a lead straw, or aren't they? And so getting notification is important for people to receive, so they are transparent, that they know what's going on.
And I want to provide a little bit of background here. Some Chicago officials, they are defending their decision to fall short of federal and state requirements to notify about 1 million residents about toxic lead service lines. Some of them are arguing that the money is better spent actually replacing the pipes than mailing out some of those notices. But critics say that the city is ignoring laws and designed to protect public health as well as keep residents informed. We are speaking with Jen Walling. She's the executive director of the Illinois Environmental Council. Now, the city argues, Jen, that spending $10 million on mailings would be wasteful when that money could go towards actually replacing the pipes. Do you agree or disagree with that line of thinking?
I'm confused, and I think that we saw in that hearing that alders were also confused. I don't know how delivering letters to 900,000 homes is going to cost $10 million. Just doing the math on that, that's a lot in doing a mailer. I mean, maybe there's some staffing time, et cetera, that would be needed to be found. But under state law, we're at the point where the city also already should be required to know where the lead service lines are. They should already have a plan that's in with the state for replacing their lead service lines. So I find some of it very confusing. We have 400,000 lead service lines. Illinois has an eighth of all lead service lines in the country. It is a huge issue, and we're going to need to figure out a plan to put it forward, figure out how to solve it, figure out how to bring costs down from what has been put out there. And it's a big issue to wrap around, but it's incredibly important. Lead contamination is an issue that we know how to solve. We just need the political will to do it.
Jen, could you provide our viewers, I guess, a peek inside? Are there certain neighborhoods or areas within Chicago that do still have some of these lead pipelines compared to others that are more updated?
Sure. So the lead service lines are all over the city of Chicago. They're more likely to be in homes that are 2 flats or less because of the size of a lead service line. You really have restrictions on the size. So if you're in a multifamily building, it could be that you're less likely, but there are still places where lead could be part of your plumbing. And there are still some places that remarkably had a lead service line, even though, that wasn't typical for that size. So they could be all over the city. They're more likely to be in single family homes and 2 flats than anything else. There are test kits that are provided by the city that have been provided for several years, but also there are test kits that can be purchased at any hardware store. And so, it's important that folks figure out what they're doing, what lead service lines, how they're being provided their water. I do recommend to people, there are all sorts of water filters that remove lead from tap water. Our tap water is very safe in the city. It's just how it's being conveyed. It's the safest way to get water is tap water, but the lead can pose a risk. So ensuring that you're adding a filter if you think you're at risk is important.
Outside of those maybe water filters, what should somebody maybe watching this do if they find out that their home does have these lead pipes? Are there any aids out there to help them in the process of potentially replacing those pipes? Where should they start?
Well, I think there's also confusion with the Department of Water Management about how expensive lead service lines are. There are many municipalities in the rest of the city that are doing a really great job at looking at how at starting the replacement and doing it. Places like Evanston, Elgin are identifying their lead service lines, and they're already on their way towards replacement. And in some of these municipalities, the cost ends up being somewhere around $5,000 to $7,000. That's kind of what we've seen nationally, but we're seeing figures in Chicago that are in the 20 to 30K range. So we're going to have to figure out how to get those costs down. So if you want to do it on your own, it's still going to be something that is pretty expensive. So I would recommend to folks that they get water filters if they have a lead service line and replace the filter on as recommended by the filter that's been installed. And I just would really like to see the city continuing to move forward with planning. Every time that we replace a water main in the city, we should be replacing every lead service line on that block. It's the cheapest way to deal with this issue. And anytime there's a gas pipeline being replaced on a block, we should be replacing lead service lines on that block. So there's a lot that we can do to bring down the costs. And I'm not sure why the costs being provided by the Department of Water Management are as high as they are right now.
Actually, I was going to ask you about the cost. Read a stat from Alderman Villegas where he claims that it costs about 4 to 5 times more to replace a line in Chicago than it does other cities. Do you have any idea why it would be so much more expensive here in Chicago compared to other cities?
I don't know. The numbers that I've seen that are coming out have been very high, and we have similar labor requirements that other cities have. I think maybe it's looking at the entire cost of all the pieces of the project. I know that we did some work, and the Chicago City Council should be commended for the work that it did to reduce permitting requirements. I mean, you used to start with a minimum of $2,500 to $5,000 just to get the permits to replace your lead service line, and those have been waived, so you can get that. But there's nothing that should make us that much higher than other cities. So I think it's something we really need to explore. And the city can bring those costs down by doing planning. I think we have to take this issue really seriously and figure out how to bring the costs down and in comparison to other cities that are replacing them and doing them much more cheaply than we are, still with union labor.
All right, we've been speaking with Jen Walling, the Executive Director of the Illinois Environmental Council. Thanks so much for your time and perspective on Chicago Live this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
All right, time's now coming up on 1:59. We're going to head right back to Joliet. Governor Pritzker has stepped up to the podium at Joliet Junior College, where they just cut the ribbon on a new health and wellness center. Let's listen in.
Effects upon the state budget, and that's going to be yet another conversation.
Governor, with that in mind, how will you make sure that the community intervention funding isn't going to people who might be wanted here or in other states for crimes?
You're talking about community violence intervention.
Right, that funding isn't going to people who might be...
Well, you have to understand that the way that community violence intervention works is it is often the case that people who have been in prison before but served their time and may have been in gangs before, who are growing older, are actually some of the best people to have deterring people from joining gangs and from being involved in violence in their communities. That's one of the reasons it's worked. Community violence intervention in this state has worked. You've seen crime drop precipitously, especially violent crime. And again, one of the reasons for that has been organizations like CRED and other CVI organizations that have been funded by city, county, state, and the federal government. And Donald Trump has cut those funds, and that will have a deleterious effect on our ability to fight crime, in addition to the cuts that he's made to law enforcement across the United States.
Are you calling on them to sort of revise their vetting so that you don't have a suspect who's involved in a robbery of Louis Vuitton and then ultimately a murder who's on the payroll and posing a photo with you?
It's awful when anybody commits a crime, and when you say that we shouldn't have somebody who was involved in crime before in their lives involved in community violence intervention, that's just not how it works. We want people who understand, who've lived in the communities, who have fallen into that lifestyle, to work now to deter people from entering a life of crime, and particularly for our young people. There's no way, by the way, when you take a picture to vet everybody. Do you know how many pictures I took out there with people who are sitting in the audience? I do it all the time. I do it when I'm walking along the street. We have terrific executive protection folks, but there's not a lot they can do. When people want to come up and take a picture with me, they can't, I'm sorry, let me see your background, let me look you up before you can take a picture. That's just not how it works.
The suspect had warrants outstanding in multiple states, though.
That isn't something that our EPU can know, and honestly, we were invited into that environment, and we know that people who are involved in community violence intervention are people who have had a previous life of crime. Certainly, nobody knew that this person had warrants in other states if they were active at the time.
Governor, back to the executive order, but you...
Sorry, Rose.
Related to those 4% cuts, can you talk about why that was necessary? Because a lot of people are going to look at that action and say, is this an indication that Illinois' financial picture is really bleak right now?
No, what it's an indication of is that the federal government, Donald Trump, and the big ugly bill have been literally weighing on states all across the United States. You talk to every state in the country, and they will tell you that they are having to make cuts to their state budgets to deal with what the federal government has done to them.
And also, can I ask you about the president's comments related to autism and acetaminophen? Your thoughts on just that?
Yeah, let's start with, and I've said it before, I honestly think that there is something wrong with the president. That he not only doesn't understand the science, but apparently can't pronounce the words and doesn't really do any reading, because there's 30 years of science around the question of whether acetaminophen, that's how you pronounce it, is in fact bad for women to take or pregnant women to take. And they should listen to their doctors, but go talk to your doctor and ask them if they think that Donald Trump and RFK Jr. are actually issuing health orders that make sense for the country.
Going back to the executive order, how did the state arrive to calling on your state agencies to identify up to 4% of FY 26 funds for reserves in this executive order? Why that number, up to 4%?
Because it's a beginning of dealing with what we think could be a very severe challenge for the state budget in this year. Remember, we can only identify what we know. Here's something that I'm very concerned about, which is that the budget is affected vastly by the economic situation of the country. And we're already seeing that states like Iowa are in recession. We're doing okay in Illinois right now, but I can't believe that when we see lots of other states that are severely negatively impacted by the president's policies and the economies of their states are affected, that they're not also going to see a deterioration of revenues. So we don't know what's going to happen for Illinois. We certainly have brought a lot of new companies and jobs to the state. But if we get a recession, and I'm hoping we don't, but if we see one, and it seems like others are experiencing it, then we're going to have to not only look at the 4%, but see what other things we can do to deal with the challenges that are brought upon us by Donald Trump. Thank you all very much.
Can I ask you about Jimmy Kimmel real quick?
Okay, we're going to get one Jimmy Kimmel question in. Sure.
So,
sure.
Push Jimmy Kimmel back on the air tonight. However, Sinclair and Nexstar are not going to be airing the programming. Do you still want people to boycott ABC7 and WGN?
Look, ABC did the right thing putting Jimmy Kimmel back. The fact that they have affiliates who are not doing the right thing, I can't speak to. That's a business decision on their part. And also, in my view, that is a political decision that those affiliates have made. We'll see. We'll see. They say they're in negotiations to bring Jimmy Kimmel back. We'll see what they do. What was important to me, though, was the fact that the federal government, let's be clear, was stepping on private industry to get them to quiet a critic of the president. That is the constitutional issue at heart of why I had called for a boycott. ABC did the right thing bringing Jimmy Kimmel back. That's the right thing. Question now is Sinclair, Nexstar, why are they holding out? What is it exactly that is the reason that they won't put Jimmy Kimmel back on the air? Thank you.
And that was Governor J.B. Pritzker adding his own perspective as Jimmy Kimmel makes his return to the air later on tonight. Again, we're going to have much more to come here on this second hour of Chicago Live. Time is now 2:05. We'll be right back. Just let Welcome back to Chicago Live. School's been back in session for a couple of weeks, which means we're approaching the start of fall, and homecoming season is kicking off across Chicagoland and northern Indiana as well. And the Better Business Bureau, they're sending out a warning about homecoming-related scams. We know families are all struggling and trying to save a dollar here or there. We're now joined by Steve Burness, the president and CEO of the BBB. He's going to join us now with what families need to know. Thanks so much, and good to talk to you again, Steve. Steve, are you on mute? Let's see.
I can hear you.
Now I got you. Okay, couldn't hear you there at first. So, Steve, I want to start with why exactly does homecoming season in particular create a perfect opportunity for scammers?
Well, it happens all the time. It's a perennial problem. I've been doing this for 38 years, and it seems to be that, especially after the pandemic era, more and more people are online, and therefore the scammers are now online. This is a perfect opportunity for scammers to create these fake websites. We're seeing that already at the Better Business Bureau. And it happened last year as well, and the year before that. So these are websites, bad scammers that are trying to take advantage of the situation, and especially because students always wait to the last minute, and sometimes parents do as well. I remember those days, unfortunately. It went by fast, but we wait to the last minute, and the scammers take advantage of the situation.
And Steve, you mentioned limo scams in particular. What are some of the red flags that families should be looking for when they're looking to book transportation for their teenagers for homecoming?
The key is a reliable business, so make sure you do the research on the entity itself. A lot of people call themselves limo companies when they're not licensed as chauffeurs. So you got to make sure that they are licensed and make sure they are registered as well with the city and or the state that they're operating out of. I think a lot of times people just online put a pretty picture of a car or a vehicle and they say that they're a limo service. You want to make sure that they're licensed and regulated. And doing the research, just like any other business, you have to do your due diligence and research on businesses, especially now the digital world, because AI is taking over a lot of the things. And people can create fake products with AI, fake advertisements, things of that nature. So we want you to make sure you're doing a business with a reliable organization that you know and trust.
And on the fashion side of things, we know that everybody wants to have the latest and greatest and maybe save a couple of dollars while doing so. What are some of the things that parents and students can be looking out for when they're trying to tell the difference between a legitimate retailer or maybe a fraudulent site that they saw on their Instagram feed?
So what happens usually on the Instagram feeds or the Facebook marketplaces or Facebook itself, you get these pop-up ads. And therefore, you're not able to do any due diligence or checking on them because it's an ad that appeared. And guess what? It's an item that you looked at probably a couple hours before. These marketers follow you around. They know what you're looking at, and then they offer you this great product and or service. So last year, we saw a lot of problem with fake dresses. A lot of women, young ladies, look online for an inexpensive way to get a dress and end up with organizations that some were tied to China. And some got dresses that weren't the right size or color, and some didn't get anything at all. So it's important to do the research on the organization. When you're looking at an ad that appears on your screen and it asks you to click here, there's no way of checking on them. So we want you to be very careful of those particular ads because you don't know anything about them. It's important to do the research. Even if somebody's coming to your house, you still got to do research on them. And they just want you to click that button and give them your credit card number. And sometimes that's all the scammer wants is your credit card number, and they don't even want anything else. They'll tell you they're going to send something when actually they just wanted your credit card number.
What if families maybe decide, okay, I'm not going to buy the dress or the suit? What if they try to go maybe the rental route? What are some of the fine prints that families should be looking out for if their teens maybe drive and they want to rent them a car or rent them a suit or a dress?
It's important to know if you are renting something, there's usually limitations and exclusions apply pretty heavily. What I mean by that, there's age restrictions on vehicles, and if you're renting a tux or things of that nature, there are limitations or exclusions or policies you must adhere to. And I think a lot of times people read this, the big print, and they forget about the little print that taketh away. So you got to make sure you're doing all your due diligence and making certain of the age requirements that are required to rent something. But we see this time and time again when they try to rent vehicles or rent tuxes. And sometimes you have, even fake businesses online saying that they're a rental organization when they're not. With the use of AI, they can create an ad, they can create a website pretty easily. It's important to determine the track record of the particular organization. You got to find out some information about them online. And sometimes no information is a sign in itself that they may not be a legitimate business or have no track record. Again, there's a lot of great businesses out there. Unfortunately, the scam artists and the bad businesses always infiltrate and take advantage of consumers and students.
And Steve, we've gone over some of the tips to not get scammed. Let's say a family is beyond that point. They've tried to rent the limo and the limo never shows up. Or they order the dress online and it's not what they thought that they were getting. What steps should they take then?
Well, first and foremost is contact your credit card company. Hopefully use your credit card on all transactions, online, offline, even over a debit card. You have your best protection on that front. Secondly is complain to the Better Business Bureau. We have a complaint mechanism that can help you resolve these issues. And we also have a scam tracker. So if you see a scam and you think nobody will fall for it, let us know about the scam because somebody will. But again, the squeaky wheel always gets the oil. Make sure you complain. Studies have been done in the past where 9 out of 10 consumers have a valid complaint, don't come forward. And this is how these bad businesses and scammers continue to proliferate in today's society is as people that don't reach out and complain. So please let us know, let your credit card company know, and make sure you document everything so when the time comes to review the matter, either with the Better Business Bureau, or if you should happen to file a small claims court, you need the information of the itinerary, what happened and who you talked to and what the results were.
One of your tips, Steve, said, don't wait until the last minute because families become desperate and you're more likely to fall for a scam. So what should this timeline look like if a family is trying to plan, maybe not even just homecoming, but looking forward to graduation or other big events? How many weeks or months in advance should they be making these plans so that they don't fall into a trap and end up getting scammed at the last minute?
This happens all the time. Again, I mentioned I've been doing this for 38 years. Everybody waits to the last minute. There's no reason to wait to the last minute. You know when graduation day is. You know when prom days are. Depending on when you call, is as soon as possible because people take reservations years in advance on most things. But you have to do the homework on companies. Like you said, so many consumers, students, parents will go online a couple of weeks before when everybody else may be out of stock on something or out of dresses or out of styles, and then you just try to find something, anything you can find, and that's where the scammers are lurking in the weeds. So please do it often, do it early. It includes anything that you're doing for next summer. You can do things in advance. Always consumers get into trouble when they wait to the last minute on everything because the good businesses are usually taken. Have already enough orders and things of that nature, or rooms are reserved, or whatever it may be. There's fake hotel websites out there. You think you're dealing with a well-known chain, and it's a scammer that makes it look like they're a hotel. And there's Airbnb type scams where they say they're Airbnb and they're not. So you got to make sure you're dealing with the authentic, reliable organization that you know and trust. Go to the website directly of those companies. Don't follow the links because everybody follows the links. That's when you get into trouble because you're clicking on a link and you don't know where it's going. I'd rather you put in the keywords or put in the information in Google to get to those websites.
All right, Steve Burness with the Better Business Bureau. Thank you so much for your time as you're sending out some advice to make sure that families do not get scammed this homecoming season. Thanks so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right, time is now 2:17 here on Chicago Live. We're going to take a short break and we'll be right back. Time is now 2:20. Here's a live look from Florida, where we have just learned that a jury has found Ryan Ruth guilty on charges of attempting to assassinate President Donald Trump. Ruth represented himself at the trial. He told the jury, quote, that the only thing he was guilty of was caring deeply for his country. This all stemmed back to an incident in September of last year after a Secret Service agent spotted him in the bushes near the Trump International Golf Club in West Palm Beach, Florida. He did not fire a shot at the president, but he has been found guilty of attempting to assassinate President Donald Trump. He was found with a rifle, and he was charged at the time with attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate, because at the time, President Donald Trump was just a candidate for president. He had not been reelected as of September of last year. A jury found him guilty on all 5 counts, 2 of which carry a maximum sentence of life in prison. Again, we have just learned that Ryan Ruth has been found guilty on charges of attempting to assassinate President Donald Trump. And again, this happened when President Donald Trump was just running for re-election in the presidency, and we will definitely continue to bring you more updates on this story as we get them. Time is now 2:21 here on Chicago Live. Brian Jackson here with you on this Tuesday afternoon. Also, we want to get you some more information after the Trump administration made some claims about linking Tylenol and autism. We're now joined by Ben. Ben, could you say your last name for me? I want to make sure I got it right.
Certainly. Yes, Ben Schatzel.
Schatzel. Thank you so much. And Ben is the founder of the Stanham Core Solutions. They are a Chicago-based neurodiverse workforce firm. Thanks so much for your time here.
Thanks, Brian. Pleasure to be here.
Ben, you've studied autism, and you know this subject well. What was your first reaction when you heard some of the claims that were made yesterday by the Trump administration?
Certainly. Well, my first reaction is this is largely what we expected, right? We know that this narrative around external factors for causality behind autism has been around for a long time. And I think it might be valuable to spend just a moment going through a brief history of where some of these talking points originated. It really started in the 1940s with a theory that was called the refrigerator mother theory. And the idea was that emotionally distant or cold parents were increasing the likelihood that their child might regress into autism. This theory was later debunked in the 1960s by an individual named Bernard Rimland. But that level of skepticism when it comes to environmental factors and autism remained. Now, in the 1970s, we saw the introduction of the MMR vaccine. This was a very unique vaccine in the fact that it could address multiple diseases. And so it was hailed as a wonder drug. But on the flip side of that, a lot of the skepticism that was building around autism and these environmental factors coalesced with some of the cultural sensitivities to this new vaccine. Jumping ahead to 1998, this narrative was really accelerated by Dr. Andrew Wakefield's study in The Lancet, which claimed to have proved a connection between the MMR vaccine and autism. However, this study was done without a case series, control period, control sequence, or any control factors which could be measured over time. So fundamentally, this series did not have the ability to prove causality, even though it was able to indicate a correlation. That said, the damage was already done by that point because the information was picked up by the culture, people were running with narratives, and it took years to redact that study, which has now been fully debunked. Now we see this current theory relating to acetaminophen, but it's very similar. There's a very minor correlation. However, the causality has been debunked as recent as last year through a familial study which studied autism across siblings.
All right, thank you so much. That was a deep dive there as you gave us some perspective on how we got here. Ben, while we have you, I want you to Explain to our viewers, what are some of the common misunderstandings of the autism spectrum as we understand it here in the U.S.?
Certainly, yes. So 2 points here. One, as I mentioned about this history about environmental factors and some of the theories that propagate around them, there is a through line across these. So I brought forward 3 points, the refrigerator mother theory, the MMR vaccine theory, now the acetaminophen theory. All 3 of these carry something in common, and it's the idea that parents are to blame for their child's autism, which is simply not the case. Autism is naturally occurring. And so I think it's important for mothers and parents out there to understand that if you may have a child with autism, that is not your fault. Autism is an inherently emotional subject because we think about the ways that it impacts families and socially impacts groups. But just because it's an emotional topic doesn't mean that anybody is to blame for the existence of autism. Autism is really a fundamental aspect of our shared human existence. The other thing that I would like to touch on is about the autism spectrum itself, because I think that oftentimes people see it as a binary line where you have high-functioning individuals and low-functioning individuals. And in my view, that is not a very comprehensive way to look at the spectrum. What I would advocate for is to think about it more similar to a pie graph, where each slice indicates different characteristics or traits which may present across autistic individuals. That can be things such as language skills, social anxiety, physical stims, and each of those characteristics may present in varying magnitudes. So really, when we're talking about the autism spectrum, we're not so much talking about high-functioning versus low-functioning individuals. We're talking about a broad variety of experiences, all of which are going to be unique to the individual and unique to their own neurotype.
I want to ask you this. We're hearing a lot lately about what is being called an autism epidemic. I want to know, what does the data actually say about what we're seeing here?
Certainly. Yeah, no, great question. And first and foremost, I think it's important that we talk about the framing of this, because really autism is not an epidemic. And I don't like to engage with this under that term, despite the fact that that is the information that we are receiving right now. To suggest that it's an epidemic would state that it's contagious in some nature, and that's simply not the case. But when we're talking about some of the statistics behind this, I think a key point is to look at the increases in late diagnosed autistic adults, where 26 to 34 age groups actually show the highest propensity for increases in diagnoses. And that's up about 450% over the past 15 years. The reason I point to late diagnosed individuals is because this helps us get past the idea that autism is something that is caused, again, by environmental toxins or factors, and more realistically, that these diagnostic criterias are being refined based off increased social awareness, stronger acceptance of autism within our culture, and of course, advanced research into the subject. So individuals who may have been misdiagnosed early on in life are able to receive that diagnosis later on, now that we've advanced accordingly, and they're able to advocate for certain services that they may require.
And at Stand Up Core Solutions, you tend to focus on a neurodiverse workforce. How do you think maybe a better understanding of autism and what exactly it is can help create a more inclusive workspace?
Yes, so to start, I think it's important to define neurodiverse for this conversation. So when I say neurodiverse, I'm really talking about neurodivergent people, which of course includes autism as well as other diagnoses, but I'm also talking about neurotypical people. Both of those categories, when integrated, creates a neurodiverse environment. And so what we're doing at Stand Core is partnering directly with companies to integrate autistic talent into their operations. These are for competitive integrated positions, which is a separation from previous disability employment models. We're not doing sub-minimum wage employment. We're not doing cohort-style employment where individuals might be placed on an island in a production facility and left alone with a group of other autistic individuals. We are truly integrating these employees into their work. And the way that we're doing that is by advancing the job process, which ultimately is a win for the companies as well as these individuals who we're placing. Because what we found is that autistic individuals tend to be very process-oriented, may have high attention to detail, and can be very objective in their analysis. And so when we apply those characteristics to the workplace and specific job functions, then it allows us to streamline operations and create some universal efficiencies.
And Ben, last one for you. If you could leave our viewers with one key takeaway about autism from your years of experience, what would that be?
You know, I think it's very important that we are having conversations exactly like this. Something that I've found throughout my career in this space is that autistic people and their families often feel like they are not being heard by the government or by society at large. And as a result, I think that many times we think that autism is a nonpartisan situation or a nonpartisan subject. And I would love to believe that that could be the case. However, the reality is we are being inundated with so much misinformation around autism that it's critical that experts and authorities have the courage to stand up and speak to the reality of the subjects. Again, I understand that autism is a highly emotional subject. This impacts real people in real life. These are not just data points on a graph. But we don't need to be ascribing blame to mothers because it's nobody's fault that autistic people exist. On top of that, autistic people are not subject to an inherent deficit simply due to their neurotype. They might have characteristics and skills which differ from neurotypical people, but again, when we can integrate autistic and neurodivergent people into our neurotypical society and create processes and accommodations which support everybody, then that's going to uplift society as a whole.
You've been a wealth of knowledge. Ben, from the founder of Stand Up Core Solutions, thanks so much for your time this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Brian. It's been a pleasure.
All right, time is now 2:32. We're going to take a short break. We'll be right back on Chicago Live. Welcome back to Chicago Live. Time is now 2:35. We are joined by Chicago native and assistant professor of race and media at the University of South Carolina, Dr. Jabari Evans. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So Dr. Evans is going to speak to us a little bit about something we've just learned not that long ago. The United Center recently canceled NBA YoungBoy's concert, which was scheduled for tomorrow. The United Center did not give out any reason for this, but we have seen other incidents at other concert venues across the country where violence did break out at some of these NBA YoungBoy concerts. And Dr. Evans is going to lead us and give us a little bit of perspective on what we're seeing here. So first, I want to start with just how familiar are you with NBA YoungBoy? And could you explain to our viewers, how would you describe his music?
Well, I'll say NBA YoungBoy is someone who is an internet sensation. He's someone whose music kind of has sprouted out from what one would call the underground. But he comes from a tradition that is actually very much associated with drill rap, which is actually a subgenre of hip hop that was birthed on the south side of Chicago. The interesting thing about it is he's sort of taken it, making it his own, and he's become very popular. And, you know, it's one of those things where we see someone like NBA YoungBoy being the transition between artists that go through the traditional industry, major label pipeline to someone who is able to use social media platforms and streaming services to their own advantage and cultivate a real dedicated and loyal fan base. And I would say he's probably the poster child for that era of sort of music.
What was your reaction when you found out that his concert here in Chicago at the United Center was going to be canceled?
I kind of was under the impression that if they were going to cancel it, they should have never booked the concert in the first place, because there's been a very tenuous relationship between the city of Chicago and this genre that I've talked to you about, drill music. And beyond that, you know, there's been a public feud between NBA YoungBoy and Lil Durk, who's a local star who has a lot of reputation in the Chicagoland area, in particular his local area, which is titled O Block, titled after the slain young man Odie Perry, who passed away at, I believe, 14 years old. And, you know, they've had these public feuds back and forth, NBA YoungBoy's kind of camp and entourage, as well as Lil Durk's camp and entourage. And there's been a lot of back and forth, and there's been a lot of conversation and discourse online about, you know, if NBA YoungBoy were to ever have a tour date in Chicago, that it would be disrupted, and that it would be disrupted violently. And so I think that's something that I know the city of Chicago takes seriously and doesn't take lightly. But I think there's also this underlying capitalist motive of wanting to sort of cash in on the popularity of both of these artists and hopefully sell out an arena. But, you know, I think that there's also some real world implications on public safety. And I think that's what's come to bear here.
And you mentioned popularity. Obviously, if you're getting a chance to book a tour date at the United Center, they think that you're going to be able to sell a lot of tickets here. What do you think that this cancellation should say to, I guess, NBA YoungBoy's fans who, of course, paid their money and were looking forward to seeing him tomorrow?
This is an unfortunate thing to me, because I think what ends up happening here is hip hop is becoming a scapegoat more broadly in mainstream media. But I think what goes on here is that NBA YoungBoy's fans are now labeled and stigmatized as being sort of associated with being the wrong crowd or being sort of the wrong type of fan, when, you know, I think the United Center is always going to have artists that show up and sell out the venue. But I think it says something when people from hip hop, those who come from marginalized communities, low income backgrounds, are able to sort of make their way through the ranks, especially in the way that NBA YoungBoy has done so. And for that opportunity to sort of be snatched away, you know, due to something that I would say is about clout chasing, politics, bureaucracy, and in some ways, empty threats, potentially, it's unfortunate, because that becomes the narrative around someone who is a phenomenal artist who makes great music. And now we're sort of shifting the focus away from that artistry into what could potentially be a public safety issue.
I'm glad you mentioned the safety issue there. I guess going forward, how do you feel like maybe the city of Chicago, whether it's the United Center or other concert venues, how do they find the balance of keeping in mind safety concerns, but also supporting artists from here, from Chicago, that are so important to the vibrant music scene here?
Well, clearly, drill rap is controversial, but it also is a sign of the vibrance of our youth expression in the city of Chicago. And I think, again, just to echo the last point that I made, I think it's a shame that we get to look at drill from a deficit perspective rather than a strength perspective. And so I think as we see this move forward, I hope that, the narrative can shift. And I also hope that those who are in office, policymakers, can also start to deal a little bit more directly with the artists and their management and sort of come to some real resolutions that allow for fans to get to see the talented artists that they love, especially in a music-rich city like Chicago, a festival-laden city like Chicago, that often has gaps that they can't fill within the hip-hop genre, though we have artists that are being born and bred right in our backyards. And, the fact that someone like an NBA YoungBoy wants to have a tour date in Chicago and it gets missed, I mean, that's a big deal. And so the hope is that, the powers that be can sort of mitigate this, because drill has been around for over a decade at this point, and many of its, strongest artists are over 30 years old. And I think it's about time that we stop thinking about them as young, reckless teenagers and start to reconcile their popularity and their mainstream appeal.
What do you think that this decision by the United Center means for other artists who may be affiliated with drill rap or similar music to NBA YoungBoy and their, I guess, pursuits of coming here to Chicago? Do you see potentially other venues taking the same route as the United Center, or do you maybe see this as more of an isolated incident?
I think this is very much an isolated incident. I think it's an isolated incident that is very much attributed to the subgenre of drill rap. I think we've seen over a number of years, whether it's Lil Durk, whether it's Chief Keef, whether it's G Herbo, folks that are interacting with these artists or beefing with these artists are not going to be allowed to be showcased, because there's already sort of a public safety issue that's surrounded the subgenre of drill. And drill originates on the south side of Chicago. And so that in and of itself lends towards venue owners who have long not let local artists from this genre perform just be very wary and very concerned, especially about security issues, insurance issues. It's just a lot of a hassle, and you wonder, as much as these artists could fill a venue and could make these venues money, at the same token, it sometimes becomes not worth the risk.
Dr. Jabari Evans, thanks so much for your time this afternoon, giving us a lot of perspective as the United Center recently canceled NBA YoungBoy's concert, which was scheduled for tomorrow. So far, we haven't heard anything from the United Center on that decision. Thanks again for your time, and look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you.
All right, time is now 2:44. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back here on Chicago Live.
President Trump is totally right. Nobody forgets the 7th of
right, welcome back to Chicago Live. Time is now 2:46. As part of this show, we're going to be checking in with some of our reporters here at Fox 32 Chicago as they're working on their stories throughout the day. You're going to kind of see how their stories start. We're going to check in with them after they've done some interviews, and then you'll see the final product here on Fox 32 Chicago as well. We're going to check in with our very own Tia Ewing. She just got a chance to interview a mother who unfortunately lost her daughter in an evidence of gun violence here in the Chicago South Loop a little bit earlier today. Tia actually joins us now, literally in the car after you just finished this interview. Tia, what did you learn? And tell us a little bit more about this story that you're working on.
It's a very hard story to really tell. There's so much raw emotion, so many questions that I think we still don't have the answers to. And we may not have the answers anytime soon because we have learned that this is an ongoing investigation. But this is one of those stories that captivated not just people here in Chicago, but people around the world. A mom was dropping off her 6-year-old little boy, and from there, something happened. There's a lot of questions as to exactly what happened, but something happened. It was believed that there was some type of altercation. The father of the child was present, and that father of the child has a child with someone else. And that woman that he has another child with, a younger baby, believed to be about 6 months old. She was concealed carry, and for some reason, she allegedly pulled the trigger and killed this mother in broad daylight. People were outside. There's video showing the aftermath. And at one point, this woman was taken into custody, but was later released. So the family is simply demanding justice. They're saying that they have not heard from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office on this. They want to have a conversation to at least understand what's happening with this investigation since the person that was taken into custody was let go. Part of our investigation, our story, is that we were able to find where that woman that pulled the trigger did file for protective orders. They were granted against the woman that was shot. The family believes that that was intentionally done as to prepare for an alibi as to why a shooting would later happen. And they believe that this person was knowledgeable about the court system and that they intentionally went through the motions so that they would later have an alibi for what ultimately led to the death of Romika Blackman. So that is their story. She leaves behind a 6-year-old little boy who we got a chance to meet. His birthday is literally within 5 days from today. He was very sad, really focused in on his video game because that is the way that, he's 6. There's no real mechanisms or understanding for dealing with trauma of this level. She leaves behind a dog that is also traumatized because what the dog knows as its owner is not coming back. So we spoke to 2 sisters, an aunt, and the mother of the victim. And we will have that story on all of our platforms online. Of course, I have to get to the business of writing it. We haven't done that. We literally just pulled into the parking lot. But it will be on the news sometime at around probably 4:30, 5 o'clock, and also our news at 9. It is a very hard story to tell. That's the best way to put it. And just another family in a pile of families, because this isn't the only family, I'm sure, that wants answers. We did get a statement from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office. We will have that also tonight. So that's what we're working on. That's what we have going as of right now, Brian.
Tia, what is it about this particular story? Unfortunately, we do see a lot of incidents of gun violence here in the city of Chicago. What is it particular about this story that you think has resonated with so many people outside of our city?
Well, it happened right as kids were going to school. This was a mom who was doing the right thing, making sure her child was educated, taking her child to school, had in fact that morning put a note in his lunchbox saying that she loved him. So I think it's one of those stories where it's like, and if you saw, there was video of the aftermath, and a lot of people are questioning how all across the country, if you see this video and you see comments on the video, people are asking about the police work that was done. You see a person that had fired a weapon, witnesses are saying, hey, that's the person, And police are completely oblivious to that. It took them quite some time to realize that the actual witnesses on the scene were pointing to this person as being the shooter. So I think it's one of those things where people are asking, like, how could this happen? How could the ball appear to be dropped in right after the shooting? You see the father of the victim's child. You see that father walking back and forth in the crime scene. You know, crime scenes are supposed to be cornered off. So there's a lot of questions here as to how this investigation was done from the start. And I think that's what resonated with people is the aftermath of the video, the circumstances of how this happened, and knowing that this was a mom trying to just get her child to school. I think that was enough for most people to say, what the heck is going on here? And so we are, for lack of a better word, trying to answer some of those questions. I don't know if we get to the root of all of those questions today, but we've definitely done our part of trying to. And yeah, so we're going to try to turn this as quickly as possible. It's already 3:00, so we have to have it ready for the 4. I asked to have it at 4:30 because we're going to need some time. But yeah, the goal is to get it on our news at least by 4:30, have another story about it at 5, and then have a longer formatted story at 9. So that is the business that I'm working on right now. You see my photographer's arm because he's the person that has to put it all together once it's all written up. So yeah, that's where we are. I think that's what really resonated with people because there's a lot of questions here, no doubt.
All right, Tia, we're going to let you get on your way so you can have that story ready by our 4:30
Thank you.
news. Thanks so much for your time, and we're looking forward to you telling this story for this family here in Chicago. All right, the time is now coming up on 2:54 here on Chicago Live. We're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Chicago Live. We're going to take another look at the big board and see what the New York Stock Exchange is doing so far. You can see stocks are trading down about 48 points so far on this Tuesday. We're now going to stay in New York. We're going to head back to the UN for the General Assembly. Let's listen in.
Around Ukraine, we welcome the start of the high-level dialogue. It aimed at resolving the crisis through diplomatic means. Distinguished participants of the event, effective measures are being undertaken to implement the global counterterrorism strategy in Central Asia. In cooperation with the UN Office of Counterterrorism, a regional council on rehabilitation and reintegration was established. We propose to transform this council into an international competence center. This very body will serve as an important platform for exchanging experiences on adapting to peaceful life for those repatriated from conflict zones. Furthermore, we stand ready to provide all the necessary conditions for the establishment of the Regional Office of Counterterrorism in Uzbekistan. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in today's world full of threats, we are witnessing how vulnerable the global transport system is. These challenges primarily have a negative impact on the stability of landlocked developing countries. It is of utmost importance to ensure the security of international transit corridors and to establish efficient logistics networks. In this regard, we believe the time has come to introduce a global mechanism on strengthening transport connectivity to achieve sustainable development goals. I would also like to draw special attention to the increasingly acute challenges of climate change. For instance, the consequences of the RLC desiccation must remain at the constant focus of the international community.
And you were just listening to some comments from the UN General Assembly. Thanks so much for joining us on this Tuesday edition of Chicago Live. We'll have much more for you coming up tomorrow starting at 1 o'clock. We'll see you then.
In recent years, salt-tolerant desert plants have been planted on 2 million hectares of the dried seabed of RLC. By the year 2030, green cover will be created on 80% of this area. Another serious issue is the water scarcity. As of now, more than 2 billion people in the world do not have access to clean drinking water. We are planning to hold a World Forum on water saving in our country. The outcomes of this conference are expected to recognize the water crisis as a serious threat to sustainable development. We intend to adopt a special roadmap for the wide introduction of innovation technologies in a global level. Another adverse consequence of climate change is the intensifying trend of climate migration. Unfortunately, clear international mechanisms and the legal framework in this direction have not yet been created. We advocate for the adoption of the Global Pact for a broad international partnership and coordinated policy on this serious issue. Dear participants of the meeting, it is of great importance to prevent inequalities in digital development and the use of artificial intelligence between countries. We propose to create an international cooperation mechanism aimed at the gratis exchange of practical solutions and models of artificial intelligence in healthcare, education, and culture. I would like to emphasize another priority issue: our future, the destiny